Cold water?
Yes, please. 1 bottle.
Here you are.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next.
Here you are.
Thank you, sister.
You're
Thank you.
welcome. You're welcome, sir. Enjoy.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Buy cool water, sir. It's good for the
Sir.
It's good for the heat.
All right, I'll take one.
Me
Thank you.
too. Thank
Enjoy.
Medalla stood outside the company gate, selling pure water in the hot sun. Through the glass window, she saw her, Catherine, her best friend, wearing an expensive suit, sitting in the office Medalla was supposed to be in, living the life Medalla was supposed to have, using the credentials Medalla had worked 10 years to earn. And when their eyes met through that glass, Catherine looked away. She pretended not to see her. The girl who used to share her last meal with her in the village. How did it come to this? Let me take you back. Because this story will break your heart and teach you the truth about friendship and betrayal.
You are welcome to my channel, African Tales by AJ. So relax, listen closely, and let the story begin.
The sun in Lagos shows no mercy. By 10 in the morning, it is already burning. By noon, it feels like fire sitting on your shoulders. Medalla had been standing on that road since 7. Her feet hurt, her back hurt. The cooler of pure water sachets was heavy, and the strap had been cutting into her palm for 3 hours. She shifted the cooler to her other hand. Pure water! Pure water! 50 naira! Her voice was still strong. She made it stay strong. It was the only thing she could control. She had eaten 1 piece of bread that morning. She was keeping the other piece for evening. Her rent was 3 weeks overdue, and her landlord had knocked twice this week. Yesterday, she had hidden inside her room and stayed very quiet until his footsteps went away. This was her life in Lagos. 26 years old, a girl with big dreams and a notebook full of plans that had never worked out. She had applied to 43 jobs in 8 months. 43. She knew the number because she wrote each one down. She thought if she kept records, maybe God would see her seriousness. God was still looking. She was shifting the cooler again when she saw the building. Brightway International. The big glass building on the right side of the road. She passed it every day. She had passed it 100 times. Sometimes she would stop and look at the people going in and coming out in their clean clothes, their leather shoes, their faces that looked like they had never gone to bed hungry. She looked at it again today, and then she stopped moving. Because inside the glass, through the window of the 2nd floor, she saw a face she knew better than her own. Catherine. Her Catherine. Village Catherine. The girl who used to sleep next to her on one mat. The girl who used to pray with her every night before bed. The girl who used to say, Medalla, my sister, me and you, we go conquer this city. Catherine was sitting behind a big desk, wearing a cream-coloured blazer. Her hair was done, her nails were done. She was talking to someone, laughing at something, completely at ease. The kind of ease that only comes from belonging somewhere. She belonged there. Inside that office, inside that life. And something about the way she sat, the way she moved, pulled at something deep in Medalla's chest. Because that feeling, that comfort, that belonging, Medalla had felt it before. In her dreams.
Catherine?
Every single night for the past 3 years. That was supposed to be her life. Then, Catherine looked toward the window. Their eyes met. 1 second, 2 seconds, then Catherine looked away. Slowly, deliberately, like Medalla was a stranger, like Medalla was nobody, like she had not seen her at all. Medalla's pure water cooler slipped from her hand and hit the ground. She stood there on that hot road, among the noise and the exhaust and the rushing people, and she felt something break inside her chest. Not loud, not dramatic, just a quiet, terrible cracking. Like a bone that had been under pressure for too long, "Sister, you okay?" a passing woman asked her. Medulla did not answer. She picked up her cooler. She went back to selling water. But this is not where the story begins. Let me take you back to the village. Back to when they were sisters. Back to before everything changed. 3 years ago, their village was small and quiet. No generator noise, no traffic, just the sound of morning birds and Mama calling children to eat before school. Medulla had grown up on that red dirt road, and she knew every face, every fence, every shortcut through the cassava farm. But the one face she knew best was Catherine's. They had been friends since they were 7 years old. Catherine's mother and Medulla's mother were neighbours. They grew up sharing everything, 1 cup of Gary between them. 1 pencil for 2 notebooks. 1 dream between 2 hearts. Get out of the village, build a better life, come back one day and make their mothers proud. Medulla was the clever one. Not in a way that was arrogant. She was just naturally sharp. Teachers loved her. She would read a thing once and remember it. She could solve problems fast. She won the school debate competition 3 years in a row. When she spoke, people listened. Catherine was different. Things did not come to her as easily. She would study for hours what Medulla understood in minutes. But she was warm. She was funny. She could make any room feel lighter just by walking in. Together, they made sense. In the evenings, they would sit outside on the compound steps and plan. Their voices were always low, serious, full of fire. "Catherine, when I get my first salary, I will send money for your transport fare," Medulla would say. "And when I get mine, I will pay your first 3 months' rent," Catherine would answer. They would laugh then. Big, open laughs, because the future felt close enough to touch. They shared food without counting. If Medulla had 1 orange, she peeled it and gave Catherine half without thinking. If Catherine had extra bread, she wrapped Medulla's portion before she even ate her own. That was just how they were. Natural, easy, like breathing. On cold harmattan nights, they would braid each other's hair and talk until midnight about the kind of houses they would build, the kind of men they would marry, the kind of mothers they would become. Dreams layered on top of dreams. The day they left for Lagos, both their mothers stood at the roadside and prayed over them. Mama Medulla held her daughter's face in both hands and said, "My daughter, God has put something special inside you. Do not let anybody dim your light." She said it loud enough for the whole street to hear. Medulla cried. Catherine smiled. But later, on the bus to Lagos, Medulla noticed Catherine had gone very quiet. She thought it was just nerves. They were both scared. That was normal. She reached over and held Catherine's hand. "We go be fine," Medulla said softly. "Me and you." Catherine squeezed her hand back. "Me and you." But there had been a small moment earlier that morning that Medulla had already forgotten. When their teacher came to bid them farewell, he had held Medulla's hand and said warmly, "This one will go far. I have never taught a student like her." He had nodded at Catherine politely, just nodded. Nothing more. And in that moment, just for 1 second, Catherine's smile had not reached her eyes. Just 1 second. Medulla did not see it. They arrived in Lagos with 2 bags and 1 address. They shared 1 room, 1 pot, 1 prayer every night before sleeping. They protected each other from the loud landlord. They celebrated every interview call like it was already a job offer. They were each other's home in a city that did not care about either of them. They promised to lift each other up. They promised that no matter who succeeded first, they would pull the other along. But some promises are easier to make than to keep. The first 6 months in Lagos were hard for both of them. Job hunting in Lagos is not like job hunting in a small village. In the village, if people knew you were hard-working and honest, doors opened for you. In Lagos, nobody knew you. Nobody cared about your reputation from back home. You were just another face in a crowd of 1,000,000 hungry faces, all of them wanting the same thing. They applied together. They went to interviews together. They bought newspapers together and circled every job vacancy with the same pen. But slowly, something began to separate them. Medulla would go for an interview and come back with good news. They said they will call me back. The manager said I answered better than any candidate today. They asked me to come for a second interview. Catherine would go for the same interviews and come back with nothing. It started small. Catherine told herself it was just luck. Medulla was lucky, that was all. But then it happened again. And again, they applied to the same marketing company. Both were invited for interviews on the same day, at different time slots. Medulla went in first and came back excited. Catherine, the interviewer, was so impressed. He said I was exactly what they were looking for. That evening, Catherine went in for her own interview. She came back 1 hour later. Her face was flat and empty. They said the position was already filled, she said quietly. Medulla felt terrible. She pulled Catherine into a hug and said, "You are so talented. That company does not know what they are missing. Something better is coming for you." She meant every single word. But Catherine, sitting inside that hug, felt something she had never felt before toward her best friend. A sharp, burning feeling deep in her chest, like something small and dark was slowly opening up inside her. Why her and not me? We both came from the same village. We both grew up in the same poverty. We both suffered the same hunger. What makes her so special? She did not say it out loud. She swallowed it down and smiled. Then one evening, Medulla received an interview call that made her jump up and dance around their small room. A very good company, excellent salary, real career growth. She was so happy that she spent the whole evening preparing. She ironed her best blouse carefully and laid it on the chair. She read through her certificates one more time. She went to bed early so she would wake up fresh. Catherine lay in the dark that night, listening to Medulla's peaceful breathing, and felt the darkness in her chest grow bigger and heavier. At 2 a.m, she stood up quietly. She picked up a cup of water from the table. She set it down directly on top of Medulla's ironed blouse. She told herself it was an accident. In the morning, Medulla woke up and found her blouse completely soaked through. She had nothing else clean and pressed. She could not go to the interview. She sat on the edge of the bed and cried quietly. Catherine held her and rubbed her back gently. "It is okay," Catherine said softly. "Another opportunity will come. I know it will." But behind Medulla's head, Catherine's face was completely still, and on her lips was the smallest, quietest smile. A smile she did not even know was wrong. And that was when Catherine made a decision. A cold, calculated decision. One she would never speak out loud, one she would never admit even to herself. A decision that would destroy both their lives. The letter arrived on a Tuesday morning. Medulla had left the house early that day to sell pure water at the nearby market. She had started doing small trading to cover her rent while she kept applying for jobs. She always came home tired, her feet sore from standing on hard concrete all day. But she never complained. She told herself that God was watching and her time was coming. Catherine was alone in the room when the envelope slid under the door. She walked over and picked it up. It was addressed to Medulla. The stamp was from America. The handwriting on the front was careful and neat. It was from her Uncle Raymond, her mother's brother who had gone abroad 15 years ago and built a quiet, comfortable life for himself there. Catherine told herself she was only checking if it was something important. She told herself she would hand it straight to Medulla the moment she walked through the door. She opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter, long and warm and full of love. Uncle Raymond had used his personal connections to write a glowing recommendation letter for Madulla to Brightway International, one of the most respected companies in all of Lagos. A real job, a career position. The kind of job that does not just pay your rent, the kind of job that changes a family's entire story forever. The letter described Madulla in beautiful detail. Her intelligence, her discipline, her character, her determination to lift her family out of poverty. It included a formal interview invitation scheduled for the following Friday, a contact name, a room number, and a direct phone line. Everything was already arranged. Catherine read the letter once, then she read it again. Then she sat down slowly on the floor and read it a third time. She looked up at the wall where Madulla's certificates were pinned in a neat row. She looked at the CV sitting on the small table. She had helped Madulla type that CV herself. She knew every word on it by heart. She knew Madulla's full story. The village struggles, the late night studying by candlelight, the mother who sacrificed everything, the dream of building a better life. She had heard that story told 100 times. She could tell it herself. She sat on that floor for a very long time. She told herself she was only thinking about it, that she would never actually go through with it, that she was just a tired and frustrated woman sitting alone in a small room, imagining things she would never really do. On Thursday evening, she borrowed a blazer from a friend. On Friday morning, she woke up before Madulla and left the house quietly. She went to Brightway International. She sat in front of Mr. Johnson and she told Madulla's story as if it belonged to her. The poor village, the sacrifices, the long nights studying by candlelight with no electricity, the hunger, the determination, the dream that never died. She spoke with genuine feeling because parts of the story were her story too, and the tears that came to her eyes during the interview were completely real. Mr. Johnson leaned forward across his desk and said quietly, "You are exactly the kind of person this company needs." He hired her that same afternoon. She hid it from Madulla for 2 full weeks. Then she mentioned casually that she had found a small job at a printing company somewhere on the mainland. She never said Brightway International. She never mentioned Mr. Johnson's name. She gave no details that could be checked or questioned. Madulla was overjoyed for her. She used the last money they had saved together to buy rice and chicken, and they cooked a small celebration dinner in their tiny kitchen. She sang while she stirred the pot. She thanked God loudly for blessing her best friend. Catherine laughed and sang with her. She ate the food. She smiled across the table. And so Catherine stepped into a life that was never meant for her, wearing clothes bought with a salary earned under another woman's name, sleeping peacefully in a bed paid for by another woman's credentials. But stolen things never fit right, and lies never last forever. 6 months into the job, Catherine was drowning. She had told herself she would learn. She had promised herself that once she got her foot through the door, she would study hard, work late, and close the gap between who she pretended to be and who she actually was. She was not a foolish woman. She believed she could figure it out. But Brightway International was not that kind of place. The job required deep, specific skills, data analysis, strategic project management, detailed report writing that demanded real understanding, not just confident presentation. These were the exact skills Madulla had spent years quietly building, reading textbooks alone at night, taking free online courses on a borrowed phone, practicing and refining while the rest of the world slept. Catherine had none of it. Her first report came back with corrections. Mr. Johnson said nothing and handed it back with a calm face. Her second report came back worse. He called her into his office, closed the door quietly, and asked, "Is everything all right? Your application indicated strong analytical experience. I am not seeing that reflected in your work. I am still settling in, Catherine said steadily. I will do better. She worked late every single night. She watched tutorial videos on her phone under the desk during lunch breaks. She asked her colleague Grace careful, quiet questions, pretending it was simple curiosity. Grace helped her generously, completely unaware of the full picture, but the stress was destroying Catherine from the inside. She stopped sleeping properly. She lost weight. She jumped every time her phone rang with an unknown number. Every morning she opened her email with shaking hands, terrified of what she might find waiting for her. On weekends, she sometimes drove past the street where Medulla still sold water. She would see her there. Same cooler, same carefully ironed wrapper, still smiling at every customer, still standing tall in the burning sun with a dignity that poverty could not touch. Catherine would press her foot on the accelerator and drive past without slowing down, her eyes fixed forward, her hands tight on the steering wheel. Then one ordinary evening, everything changed. Medulla's phone rang. It was Uncle Raymond calling from America. His voice was warm and excited. Medulla, my daughter, how is the new position treating you? I have been waiting to hear good news. Mr. Johnson is a very good man. I hope my recommendation letter helped open the door for you. The room went completely silent. Medulla's voice dropped to almost nothing. Uncle Raymond. What letter? The recommendation letter I sent to your address in February, my daughter. You never received it. Medulla sat down slowly on the edge of her bed. February. That was exactly the same month Catherine had suddenly announced she found a job she described vaguely, a big company she never named, an opportunity she shared no details about. And then she had packed her bags and moved into a nicer apartment within 2 weeks. Medulla looked around her small, empty room. She thought about the glass building on the road, the cream blazer, the big desk, the face that had looked away. Her hands began to tremble. Meanwhile, at that same moment inside Brightway International, Mr. Johnson's office light was still on. He had been sitting at his desk for the past hour, a file open in front of him. He had been reviewing it carefully, cross-referencing documents, checking dates and details, with the quiet thoroughness of a man who had not built a successful company by ignoring things that did not add up. He picked up his phone and called Catherine directly. Miss Catherine, please come to my office first thing tomorrow morning. There are some questions about your file that I need you to answer, and I need you to come prepared to tell me the complete truth. Catherine sat in her apartment that night and stared at the wall. She did not sleep, not even for 1 minute. The walls were closing in on every side. The truth was rising like water in a locked room, and there was absolutely nowhere left for Catherine to hide. Mr. Johnson was a thorough man. He had built Brightway International from nothing, and he had done it by placing the right people in the right positions. He understood talent, he understood character, and he understood, better than most, when something in his company was fundamentally wrong. He had been wrong about Catherine, and that bothered him deeply. He spent that night going through every document in her file with careful, patient eyes. He cross-referenced her credentials against the recommendation letter. He checked the dates. He verified the certificates. He made 2 phone calls, and by midnight, the full picture was sitting in front of him, clear and undeniable. The next morning, he sent his driver to the road outside. The driver came back with a young woman wearing a faded blue wrapper, ironed so carefully it still held its creases. Her hands were cold from carrying a water cooler since early morning. She looked confused and slightly frightened as she was led through the glass doors of the building she had walked past for 8 long months. Mr. Johnson stood up when she entered his office. He gestured to the chair across from his desk and said gently, "Please sit down. I am sorry to bring you here without explanation, but I need to show you something. He placed the letter on the desk in front of her. Medulla looked down. She saw her name. She saw her uncle's handwriting. That careful, familiar script she had known since childhood. She saw her own credentials listed with such love and pride. She saw the interview invitation that had been meant for her hands, her eyes, her future. Her fingers touched the paper very lightly, like it might disappear. "This was meant for me," she whispered. "Yes," Mr. Johnson said quietly. "I am sorry it took this long to find you." He asked his secretary to call Catherine down. The room was very still while they waited. When the office door opened and Catherine walked in, she stopped the moment she saw Medulla sitting there. The colour left her face completely. Her hand stayed frozen on the door handle for 3 long seconds. Medulla looked at her. She did not shout. She did not stand up. She just looked at her with eyes that held 8 months of hunger, confusion, rejection and loneliness all at once. Eyes that asked a question words could not carry. Mr. Johnson spoke first. "Miss Catherine, I need the truth, everything, starting from the beginning." Catherine looked at Medulla's face one more time. And something inside her finally broke completely open. She sat down. She covered her face with both hands. And she told everything. The letter she had opened, the interview she had attended using another woman's story, the certificates she had studied and memorized, the job she had accepted under a name that did not belong to her. She spoke for a long time without stopping. Every word cost her something. When she finished, the room was completely silent. Then Medulla spoke. Her voice was soft and very steady. "Catherine, we were sisters. I would have helped you. If you had come to me on any day and told me you were tired and scared and desperate, I would have shared everything I had with you. We could have both made it. We could have climbed together. Why did you have to pull me down to lift yourself up?" Catherine had no answer. There was no answer that was good enough. Mr. Johnson stood up slowly. "Miss Catherine, please collect your belongings. Your employment here is terminated, effective immediately." He turned to Medulla. His voice became warm and direct. "Miss Medulla, this position was prepared for you from the very beginning. The recommendation, the interview invitation, this office, all of it was meant to be yours. If you will accept it, it is yours today. Right now." Medulla looked down at her hands. The same hands that had carried water coolers in the burning Lagos sun. The same hands that had counted 500 naira 3 times just to make sure it was enough for bread. The same hands that had ironed a faded wrapper every single morning because dignity does not require money. She looked up. "I accept," she said quietly. Catherine walked out of that building carrying a small cardboard box. The afternoon sun hit her face outside and it felt nothing like warmth. It felt like exposure, like standing in a light you cannot escape. No good reference, no clean explanation, a city that talks. 1 year later, Medulla's name meant something at Brightway International. Every project she touched was stronger for it. She sent money home every single month without fail. She paid her brother Emeka's school fees. She built a small room extension for her mother. She did all of it with her own hands, her own name, her own truth. She prayed for Catherine, genuinely and without bitterness, not because it was easy, but because carrying hatred is too heavy a burden for a woman who still has so far to go. Catherine was back to struggling. But now, the struggling had a shadow over it that never lifted. The weight of what she had done followed her into every room, every morning, every quiet night. She had gained a salary for 6 months. She had lost her best friend forever. And so Medulla learned that what is truly meant for you will always find its way back to you. You do not need to fight for it with lies. You do not need to steal it from someone else. Just stay honest. Stay standing, keep moving. And Catherine learned what every person who builds on deception eventually learns. Success built on someone else's pain will never bring you peace. What you take by betrayal, you lose by consequence. What you earn with truth, no one can take from you. The poison you prepare for your friend is the poison you will one day drink yourself.
So guys, I hope you learned something from this story. What is not yours can never truly be yours. That is why we must always choose honesty, no matter the situation. What lesson did you learn from it? Please share your opinion in the comment section. I would love to hear from you.